Now, into the ticket office of Disneyland.
Oh boy, let's do this. Don't think the CIA is going to be trying to hack your second-gen iPod.
I didn't think so. There might have been a lot of illegal music on there. I wouldn't doubt it. But, I mean...
I would just replace all of my chairs with toilets and go on with my life.
Google has found a new way to piss me off.
iTunes is a constant source of embarrassment.
Every time I say it, it's going to suck even more.
Everyone's idiots.
I am the dog.
I can't do it anymore without laughing. I was going to do the whole thing.
Welcome, everyone, to the Calling All Platforms podcast. I am your host, Wes, and I'm here with Landen.
Hello.
And Caleb.
Hi.
And we are here to talk all things tech this week.
Landon went long, so I went short. You know, it just...
Fair. He's going short. Listener, just so you know, Caleb is really wanting to cut this episode really short. Because
look, I'm leaving on a road trip tomorrow morning. There's still things that need to be packed tonight, and then I have to pack more things in the morning. But I basically accidentally scheduled my vacation around Wwdc happening, so we lucked out on that point.
Yep. So if all of a sudden he keeps going off and trying not to rant, don't worry, listener. We will try and poke that bear. See if we can get him to rant once or twice.
We're gonna find out how good my self-control is.
Yeah, we're gonna find this out quick. Hey, speaking of WWDC, that happened. That's an event. Why don't we start off with some WWDC 2026? Caleb, take it away.
All systems glow. That's actually, I don't have any more to add to that because, frankly, this went pretty well.
It's actually a pretty good keynote.
I did not have to sit down and hate write lyrics to a song to make fun of this keynote because aside from that name,
yeah,
this went pretty well.
Well, that's the thing. The first thing I thought of when they got into the AI stuff, I'm like, hey, this is where the Siri glowing thing happens. And it was like, no, Siri's actually just a black blob. It's like it's not glowing at all. What is this?
I gotta be so clear. The all systems glow moniker is so disconnected from the substance of this event that it's like I said last week. They're basically just like the marketing team is fundamentally I don't know. I guess every WWDC Craig Federighi makes jokes about them, being high off their brains in a minibus driving around California naming Mac OS. I think that might be true.
Yeah.
I think they sent them a Zoom message and we're all like, hey, we need a catchy name for this event. You want to know what it's about? Do you want to know anything? And all they got back was the 3 words, all systems glow. And they just had to get that because they were just totally stoned and that was the best that they could get out of them. I don't know. So yeah, the name, still stupid. The event actually went pretty well. I have a few initial thoughts. So my first one, the listener, I've structured this as a 5-paragraph essay from 5th grade because like I said, I'm trying not to go off the rails. I have laid myself some rails here. I'm going to do my darndest to stay on them. But a statistic that Tim Cook, I think it was, started the event off with that I just want to, I don't know if this has anything to do with the rest of the event, but it's an interesting statistic that I think says a lot about society. Just 1,000 submissions to the App Store every hour.
Yeah.
Is apparently what Apple processes.
That's
and 1,000
insane.
submissions to the App Store every hour, I feel like explains a lot about the state of software in 2026. Just saying.
Yeah, I heard that and I was like, holy crap.
That is too many.
I was expecting him to say 1,000 submissions a week, maybe a day.
No,
like
an hour. Every hour.
Wow.
That's psychotic.
Yeah.
And now, to be fair, I'm sure that they're also counting app updates. So it's not 1,000 new apps every hour.
Yeah.
But that's too many. That's too many. Anyways, here's my thesis statement for this event as a whole, and then we'll get into some of the details. Apple does still, and this is rough because I many years ago when we started this podcast, I kind of came across as just a straight up Apple fanboy. And I have been trying for many years to shake that image, to not just be the Apple fanboy. I feel like I've been pretty successful at it. But frankly, this event makes it kind of hard to shake that because of what I'm about to say. So take that with a grain of salt, listener. I know that the reality distortion field is there. I recognize that it exists, but this is kind of why I am still, despite all of the stuff, all of the things that I constantly am bringing up to hate Apple, this is why I'm still one of their customers. Okay? Apple seems to be one of the few giant corporations that grasps the idea that consumers don't actually want AI to replace anything. If you can't give me a robot that'll do my laundry and my dishes or create some sort of full production stack that will officially push us into a post-scarcity utopia where I don't have to work a 9-to-5 at all, I don't want AI to replace jack squat about what I do with technology today. What consumers want is for it to make using the devices that I already have easier.
Bingo.
And that's it.
Yep.
I don't want to replace workers in the workforce. I don't want to replace artists. I don't want to replace Hollywood. I don't want to replace TV shows. I don't want it to replace music and musicians and music labels. I don't want any of that. I just want it to reduce the friction with my device usage.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we want. And Apple, they're the only ones that seem to get that. Now, to a certain extent, Google also does. Google will talk about doing a lot of the same kinds of things with devices that Apple does, but they'll also pilot on underneath a whole layer of all the nonsense that I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Replacing this, replacing that. Here's AI models. They're going to take over the universe in the future. Nobody wants that. We don't want that.
And that's my thought behind it. It's if you go back to Google I/O 2 years ago, back when how Apple 2 years ago basically had this exact keynote, 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, Google was doing the same thing. And I didn't praise, but I, for lack of a better term, praised what they were doing because they were giving us AI tools that were extremely useful on Android and because it's Google, also on the web and on even iOS, just, giving you useful ways to use AI. Fast forward to 2026 at Google I/O. Yeah, they're still doing that, but the majority of the keynote was about how they're just trying to make generative AI really the main thing that they want people to do. And in reality, not even developers, they're going to use it to an extent, but most developers don't want that. They want the tools that Google's giving them, but they don't want to use AI to do everything for them.
Exactly.
And nobody wants AI to do everything for them. They don't. I've been thinking about this week because of WWDC and whatnot, and thinking, how Caleb said, this is what I want from AI. I want these tools. And I also think nobody really wants generative AI anymore. It was fun. It's a fun little toy to play around with. But
it was a neat gimmick, but it's not a useful tool.
Yeah.
It's not going to give us anything.
Yeah. I think
so.
If more companies see what Apple's doing, see what Google did do, and realize, oh, that's what people want? Okay, let's try and do that. Please.
Yes.
Because that is actually what's useful in AI.
I think that a big part of, if you look at I/O this year, and especially Build this year, and just a lot of the conversation that has been happening around the future of these platforms, OpenAI talking about how they're going to build a phone to rival the iPhone that's going to be completely agentic and generative AI nonsense under the hood and all that stuff. And those are all of those keynotes, all of those announcements, all of that discussion is basically the company talking to their shareholders, right? It was a keynote for shareholders. Apple just had a keynote for their consumers. And I think they're the first ones to do that this year.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else has done that this year. And I'm going to throw last year into it too, including WWDC last year. Because this year felt way more like they were talking to us, the consumer, and going, hey, we recognize you have some pain points with what we've been doing. Here's our attempt to reassure you. And it's pretty reassuring.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Like I said, I kind of hate that. Like, I feel like I'm coming across as an Apple shill here, but look, I will shill for this attitude. You know, like this attitude is what I will shill for. Like I said, if somebody turns around with a completely full production stack that is going to replace manual labor across the workforce and give us all so much resource availability that everybody will like have their basic needs met without having to do anything, that'd be great. But until we get to that point, just chill. All right. I don't want my AI agent, whatever, to write a book for me, but I would love it if it was really smart about spell checking me.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't developers, for instance, I work with a ton of software developers. They don't want to prompt it. In fact, yeah, they use AI tools. And basically what they do is they prompt the AI, take the code that it gives them into their normal code editor, and then use the built-in code editing tools and go through and rewrite it so that it works the way that they actually want it to. But they don't want generative code. What they want is smarter code completion, right?
Yeah.
They want built into their normal workflow. They want to be able to just be like typing along and have the thing in the moment offer to complete the code for some basic, obnoxious, repetitive thing that they don't want to go through and write out themselves. But it's really common. It's really easy to do. They just want the tools to pop up and be like, hey, here you go. They want smarter code completion. They don't want generative code. And that's how this is for all this stuff. Like even, yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but even Apple's implementation of like image generation in terms of the way that their users are doing photos is basically like, hey, you want to tweak the angle of your photo or the positioning of the subject in your photo because you kind of sucked in the moment with the camera. We'll use generative AI to fill in the edges. That is like, okay, here's image generation in a way that I don't hate.
Yeah.
But if you want good photos, you should still get a photographer because this isn't going to replace that.
Yeah.
It just lets you photo you took suck a little bit less.
Yeah. And like, I've heard a lot of the Android covering news sites and podcasts and stuff. They're talking like a lot of them are mentioning how they're like, well, okay, the bigger fanboys of the Android side of things are saying how, well, Apple's finally catching up to 2 years ago Android. It's like, well, yes, they are. I agree.
Yes.
They are doing that. That is fine, in my opinion, because
but that's where we should have stopped. I don't know.
This is where we want it to be. And the people that are actually looking at it smartly, they might be on the Android side of things, but like, okay, good job, Apple, for catching up, but also good job for giving us what we want AI to do, because they're the ones also complaining about what Google is doing with AI, because yeah, it's going too far in a lot of ways. So yeah, if Apple sees that and doesn't try to go farther, that's like you got to improve over the years. That's obvious.
Sure.
Make your AI, make your large language models better. Make these things work faster, work cleaner, work easier, less mistakes. That's fine. That's what we want. Don't go into the generative AI. And like, I'm even okay with a little bit of the agentic stuff to an extent.
Yeah.
But
well, the way
it doesn't
that
need
Apple's
to go
doing
super far.
Yeah, the way that Apple's doing the agentic stuff is much more reasonable.
Yeah.
And it looks an awful lot like what Google was saying the assistant would do like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Which is exactly what we want out of this.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. Reduce friction, right? Make it easier, but don't replace stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want the AI to replace my operating system. I don't want the AI to replace the websites I visit. I want the AI to reduce the friction of using those things. I want it to tie them together in a nice little package.
Yeah.
And that's what Apple has been talking about with WWDC. That's what Google was talking about a few years ago, and that was the right approach. They've shifted, and it's not good, and they've shifted as a result of pressure from shareholders because Anthropic and OpenAI and XAI and all of these people are out here just basically crapping all over the state of technology as we know it.
Yeah.
So anyways, that a little bit of a rant, but that in a nutshell, that was not much of a nutshell. It was like a 10-minute nutshell, but that's my thoughts on WWDC as a whole. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about what they actually went over in the event. The first thing that Craig Federighi talked about was the absolutely stoned out of their minds marketing team who picked the next name for Mac OS. It's Golden Gate. Mac OS 27 is called Golden Gate. Now, why did they announce that right up front? Is it because they started with Mac OS? No, they didn't actually talk about any OSs individually.
No, which is kind of weird.
And it was strange, but I hope they keep doing this because I found this so much more useful. But it's sort of indicative of what this year is for Apple's operating system development. This is, for lack of a better term, a snow leopard release.
Yeah.
For those of you that have been around for a while, back in the day, back when Big Cats were still what they were naming Mac OS as, Apple released Mac OS Leopard, which was the follow-up to Tiger. Tiger was awesome. Tiger was fantastic. Everybody loved Tiger. I still have Tiger installed on a few computers because it just, I sometimes like to go back to it and use it because it just feels like the golden age of computing to me. So, I love Tiger. Leopard was their follow-up to it, and Leopard was a huge deal. Like, there was a ton of new features added to Leopard that Apple was really touting because, like, hey, you know, they weren't doing yearly software releases back then. It had been like 5 or 6 years since Tiger had come out. And so this was like, oh, okay, here's all of our new feature development. Here's all this cool stuff. It was buggy. Like, it was super buggy and slow, non-performant. And in comparison to Tiger, just not good. It was, I guess probably Apple's Windows 98, you know, where you had Windows 95, which people liked, and then Windows 98 came out. It's all like, yeah, new features, new whatever. Buggy as heck. Buggy as all get out. And people had a hard time with that. And so Snow Leopard was Apple essentially not putting a bunch of new features into it, but taking all the stuff they had introduced with Leopard and fixing them, making the operating system fast, making it performant, making it stable. And I think to some people, arguably, Snow Leopard is the best version of Mac OS that Apple has ever released. Right?
That was the first version of Mac OS that I used. My laptop my original MacBook that I bought was running Snow Leopard as its first OS, and it was great.
Yep. Yeah, Snow Leopard, fantastic. Very, very well regarded. People look back on it with a lot of nostalgia. That's kind of what macOS Golden Gate and iOS 27, iPadOS 27, all of this stuff happening this year is sort of Apple's reset moment.
Yeah.
Is their moment to go, okay, we introduced a bunch of new stuff last year. We missed a few shots here. Like, we were not batting 100. We made some mistakes. Let's just take a year off of feature development to try and fix the problems.
Yeah. And I kind of love that they admitted that it was not good without actually saying those words.
So,
they're like, we heard what you said, and we're taking all that into consideration, and we're trying to make things a little bit better. And it's like, we understand you hated it, so we're going to fix it.
It was the most Apple spin doctoring approach to it, but the outcome looks positive. So let's talk about in the order that Apple presented it. First, they talked about platform improvements that they were making just to the basic operating system functionality. Then they talked about trust and safety, which is not necessarily related to last year's releases, but is more related to just the state of the world as a whole right now.
Yeah.
And then they finished by talking about Apple Intelligence and Siri, which was kind of like about half the event. Maybe not quite half, but a good chunk of the event was talking about that. So, starting with platform improvements, just at a high level, I'm not going to go into all the details that they went into in the keynote, and especially not the details that they went into in their follow-up sessions throughout the rest of the week. There's a lot more details that came out of this, but in general, they were focused on refining and enhancing the platforms, the operating systems for their devices, improving intuitiveness and addressing design pain points, right? That's like their stated goal with the developments this year. They've done things like add a slider to adjust liquid glass transparency levels. So you can go into the settings on your device and you can change how transparent things are to something that makes more sense than either not transparent at all or totally unreadable, because that's basically what your options were before.
Yeah.
They are making some like system-wide changes for like Mac OS and iPad OS. They're bringing back taskbars in the way that taskbars should exist, and compressing sidebars. So instead of having a giant floating island over on the side of your window that takes up half the window, they're going to just put it over on the side where it was before, like a sidebar. So thank heavens for that. They have made some changes focusing on app launch speed, including reducing animation lengths for like things popping and sliding and moving around, any kind of swiping or scrolling in the UI, which will help with the launch speed, believe it or not. There used to be a feature in Mac OS where you could hold down a button and watch the animations happen in slow motion.
Yeah.
That was a thing that they put into Mac OS because Steve Jobs wanted to use it in a keynote and to show off their fancy animations, which is great, but we are way past that point now, Apple, and thankfully they're toning down the animations. They've also updated the CPU scheduler, which, super technical thing, listener, but the short story of it is, this is what keeps your CPU doing the most important task when it needs to be done and prioritizing stuff in the computer. That's what the scheduler does. It has been redesigned across all supported devices, right? So not like they have made changes and introduced new CPU schedulers over the past couple of years that are more performant, but they've only been available on Apple's newest devices running their newest versions of Apple Silicon. But with this year, they have rewritten all of the CPU schedulers for all of their CPUs. So they'll all be more performant and more effective for use this year, which is great. They are basically keeping the same list of supported devices with a few exceptions. The watches are changing, I believe, and the iPads, maybe? I can't remember.
I was actually looking
iPhone...
at this earlier. So the watches are dropping support for everything before the Series 9, which is 3 watches, because I've got the Series 6 and I've got OS 26 on there. So that's going to be 4 watches, because the original SE watch, I believe, got Series 26, and Series, and then Series 6, 7, and 8 all got it. So the SE3 and Series 9 and newer, and then the Apple Watch Ultra 1 is also being dropped. So the Ultra 2 and Ultra 3 get it, and then 9 and newer. So they're actually dropping quite a bit of watches on this one. I
think the watches are the ones that are being hit. I think so. The iPhones are staying the same, iPhone 11 and newer. Yeah. The Macs are staying the same, basically M1 and newer, and the iPads I think are also staying the same. The Apple TV, they're dropping the first version of the Apple TV that had, I think it was just called the Apple TV 4K. Originally, but the first version that had the App Store on it, they're dropping support for that one. So there's Apple TV, we're losing one of those, we're losing a bunch of watches, but for the Macs and the iPhones, the iPads, I think that's pretty much all staying the same as last year. So updated CPU schedulers for all of those should make your older devices honestly feel much more performant, which is great.
The other thing I've also heard a lot of is like, I think it was the iPhone 15 in particular, that series, the battery with OS 26 just took a major hit. And from what I understand, this is going to help with that on those. I mean, it's going to
Yes.
help battery probably on all of them, but
It should, yeah.
it hopefully will help with the 15 because I've heard I know people that have the 15 and they're like, yeah, my battery is awful.
Yep, the CPU scheduler does. I mean, the efficiency of the task performed by the CPU is a big part of how your battery gets used up. So
Yeah.
should help with that. Another thing that should help with that is actually better network transitions. So for devices that are going to be switching between cellular networks and Wi-Fi networks, so your phones, obviously, but also cellular iPads, they have worked on making those transitions smoother so that you don't have to do stuff like, oh, my data didn't transfer over to the more appropriate network, but like I walked past my favorite coffee shop and it just grabbed the Wi-Fi network from the street, and now my data doesn't work because I'm too far away from that Wi-Fi network,
Yeah.
but it's preferring Wi-Fi, and so you have to go in and turn your Wi-Fi off. They've supposedly fixed that, and that should help with devices hunting for networks.
Yeah.
Should make that more efficient, which would also help with battery. They've rebuilt search, which is so funny to me because, like, you know, Apple saying, hey, we've rebuilt search, especially in Mac OS, and we're making it better, is wild when you consider that the most common praise you hear for Mac OS by people who are coming from Windows is for Spotlight.
Yeah.
Is for search. They're just like, wow, it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And Apple's over here like, we know it's not good enough. Let's make it better. And Windows is basically just, I don't even know. They're out to lunch. Microsoft is just gone. But yes, they've rebuilt search across the OSs with a new indexing structure that's supposed to be faster and more efficient and better ranking of results. So that this is a thing I have noticed Spotlight doing occasionally over the past little while is I will go to like launch a program from Spotlight. I will type in the program and it will preference a Safari search as the top result. And I'm like, no, I have this installed. I don't want to search for it on Safari. I would just like to launch it. And stuff like I have multiple versions of MuseScore installed on my Mac. I've got MuseScore 3, MuseScore 4, and MuseScore Studio. I don't know why I haven't uninstalled the old ones. I probably should. But compatibility or something. And I will occasionally go to launch MuseScore by typing MuseScore into Spotlight, and usually it grabs the most recently launched one, which is MuseScore Studio. But sometimes it'll grab MuseScore 3, just for kicks and giggles. And I'm like, no, I haven't used that in like 2 years. What the heck are you doing? So yes, fixing stuff like that. Messages, they've added send indicators for individual messages in message threads inside of messages, so that if you send somebody a video or a picture, like a large file that's taking a while to send, and then you send other messages after that, you will see a progress bar for that individual message instead of just a progress bar across the top of the whole message that's all like, well, did the other one send? What's going on? I don't know what's happening. But it'll, for individual messages, so you'll be able to look at it and see, oh, this is the one that hasn't gone through yet, but this other stuff has. So that's kind of nice. They've also added custom EQs for AirPods, which I don't know if that's necessarily a platform improvement, but I mean, it's all of the platforms. So,
I mean, I've heard people say, like, praising this as like, finally we get a customized EQ on AirPods. I'm like, is it that big of a deal? I mean,
here's the thing.
I understand why people want it, but in my opinion, like, I've got the AirPods Pro 2. They sound fine. Now, I actually have heard the AirPods Pro 3 don't sound as good as the 2s, which is interesting to me. So there are people that have the 3s are like, oh, I can finally make them sound like the 2s did. I'm like, okay, maybe that makes some sense. But still, I'm like, to me, this is, as an audio guy, to me, this isn't that big of a deal. But I understand why some people would want it.
I think that in general, Apple tunes their headphones for the most average listener.
Yeah.
Which means for most people, they're fine. You don't need to change anything. But if you're one of the people who wants to be able to customize the EQ on your AirPods, you can totally do that. Like, I had a stereo in one of my cars that had an EQ slider bang for which was stupid kind
Yeah.
of silly for a car. Like, the audio in cars, generally speaking, is muddy and garbage just because it's a car, man. It makes a lot of noise driving down the road. You can't really get super crisp audio quality in a car. But sure, yeah, I can customize the EQ. Why not? And I basically just used it to crank the bass because it's more fun that way. Anyways, yeah, so that's the high level overview of the platform improvements. They're focusing on efficiency. They're focusing on speed, like launching apps, doing tasks, stuff like that. They've rebuilt search to make it more efficient and useful and stuff. These are all positive things, and I think will go a long way to resolving just general pain points with Apple's past few releases of their operating systems. So I'm fully for it. Good. This has been needed for a while, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
All right. Trust and safety. So this took a different direction than I was expecting. When they said trust and safety, I was expecting them to sit here and talk to me about, like, secure cloud compute for AI and stuff like that, which no, they do talk about that, but in the AI section. This is about parental controls.
Yeah.
This whole section, which, like, we've talked on the podcast before, listener, if you haven't heard these episodes. I believe quite strongly that it is the place of a parent to be involved with their children's use of their devices, and that all of the platforms we use have parental controls available.
Yeah.
And you should set those up. You should use them to monitor and help guide your children in the use of their devices while they are still learning what is healthy and what is not.
One thing that I love that they said, they didn't directly say that governments shouldn't be controlling this, but they very, very strongly hinted at that, because they basically said the same thing you did right there, that we have been saying for a long time on this podcast that, yes, it should be that the options are there provided by the software in the device that you're using, and then the parents have the control on what is being done. That's
parents
the way it
have
should
the responsibility to protect their kids, not the government.
Yep.
The government should have nothing to do with this. That's typically been the context under which we've had these discussions, listener. So it's nice to have a slightly more positive context surrounding this discussion.
Yeah.
But just in, bulleted list, nutshell of what Apple is talking about with trust and safety for this year's releases. They are developing a guide for parents to reference in partnership with the American Academy of Pediatrics, which I think is good. That's a good organization. They had a list of other charitable nonprofit organizations focused on children's mental health that they are also working with in the development of this guide. So this is a guide of device usage for children that is for parents. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, things like, how should my children be using their devices and stuff like that? Yeah, this is a great resource to have.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
And what's also great about that, if you have questions, they'll actually give you links to websites that give you the data that they're basing everything off of. And the other thing I love about it is when you go to set it up, if all you do is just set it up and put the age in of whatever your child is, it defaults to these settings. And then you can go in and make it either stronger parental controls or less parental controls, but the defaults are based off of these recommendations, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And that, Landon, you kind of touched on it. The big thing that they're announcing for this is that in conjunction with this guide they've developed, they're also introducing a setup assistant for child accounts. So it used to be you would go to create a child account and it would be like, okay, enter this information. Your child now has an account. Hey, there's parental controls. Would you like to turn any of those on? And that was it. It would just kind of point you to where they were, and then you had to go through and figure everything out and set it up yourself. There's now an assistant for that will basically pre-configure your child's account with the recommended settings and then walk you through what the settings are that have been set up so that you can change them if you want to. But honestly, use the recommended settings for a while and see if they work for you and then change them. Just go with the recommended defaults and then see over time if you need to change anything. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic introduction. They've also added Ask to Browse for websites.
Yeah.
So this is kind of building on a feature that already existed in their parental controls that allowed you to set up like app downloads and certain types of functionality where essentially in order for your child to download a new app in the App Store, they have to get permission. And there's a helpful little, like, they can tap on the get icon or buy icon in the App Store, but then it pops up things like, hey, you need to ask permission in order to do this. Would you like to do that now? And they can just ask for permission. It will send you as the parent, or, both parents, as the case may be, a request, and you can review the app and you can do whatever and then approve it or decline right there in the interface. This is essentially that, but for websites. So they can go into Safari and they can ask to view a website, and you'll get the request. You can look at the website. You can decide whether or not you want them to have that. I feel like this will simplify that quite a bit, versus the current system they have, which is essentially just like we can either block quote unquote adult websites, which is like a list that Apple maintains that you don't really know, or you can block all websites except for a whitelisted group that you yourself approve personally. This is kind of the middle ground between those two things, and I sort of like that approach better for a lot of situations. They've subtly changed the way screen time works. They now have time allowances in screen time instead of necessarily time limits. This is essentially the same thing as limiting different categories or specific apps to a certain time frame, but the way that they're approaching it is a little bit more granular, so that it doesn't, and it looks like it's easier to set, because the way the current system is, it sort of just encourages you to just set a hard limit for the entire device to a certain amount of time, and that's it. But this is going to allow you a bit more granular control of that without having to go through and essentially set time limits for every single app, which is a pain in the butt. So I like that. And then the last thing, and this is frankly, they announced it and I was all like, why has this not been a feature the whole fetching time? Screen time schedules.
Yeah, seriously.
So that you can have the screen time restrictions or screen time allowances that apply to your child's devices based on some kind of a schedule. Because, hey, maybe it makes more sense for them to have different limits when they're at school versus at home on the weekend.
Yeah.
Just saying. So I love that. I will be using that. Like, that's the thing. Most of this was improvements to making it like how easy it is to set up parental controls, which is great because I feel like a lot of people don't set up parental controls because they don't understand.
Yeah.
They just don't. They think it's too complicated. They think it's scary. And so they don't do it, but they should do it. And making it easier for them will encourage them to do that. And that's great. I love that. But that's not for me because I already have it set up. I jumped through the hoops. I did it and I've been using it for years. But screen time schedules, they added that. That's new. I'm going to use that. So this is the one that like changes my personal use of screen time and parental controls. Like, I'm stoked.
Yeah, like that's the one thing. Cause like, yeah, you can go in and currently and set screen time limits on a per app basis, which is really annoying because it's like, I'd rather have it be like, as a device as a whole, you at this time. Yeah. It's like at this time you can use it a little bit more, but at this time you only get like 30 minutes or 10 minutes, something like that. Where it's like, yeah, you can go in and set every app to 30 minutes, but then they just switch to a different app and switch to it. So it's like they can still use it all day if they have enough apps. And that's defeats the whole purpose. So like that is like, I heard that. I'm like, oh, finally. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is it's like now you can just mass the entire device is like you have 1 hour total on the whole device per day. But it's like the problem that exists is that, and you have downtime, right? You can set downtime. And so, I have it set so my kids can't use their phones after a certain period or before a certain period in the morning. So it's, encouraging them to not like get up super early to just be on their phone or stay up super late on their phone or anything like that. That's nice. However, if they have an hour and it's like Saturday or something like that, and I'm like, hey, early afternoon is when you're going to want to use your phone, but then they'll wake up first thing in the morning and just use it for an hour before breakfast, and then they have no time left on their phone for the rest of the day. That happens all the freaking time. But, there's no way to set it up so that it's not that. Unless I want to get really stupid with the downtime restrictions, and it's just the current system is so dumb. It's much better to just be able to say like, hey, it's not a total amount of time in the day. It's you can use your phone for these tasks for this period. So like first thing in the morning when you wake up, you can turn on music, you can send some text messages, you can make a FaceTime call to a family member or something like that. That's fine. Do that. You're not playing games. You can play games in the early afternoon, which is when you're actually going to want to do that. That kind of thing. It's so much better.
Yeah.
So yes, I wish they had introduced this last year so that I could use it on my road trip this coming week. But
yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're just going to muddle through.
Yeah. The only thing that I still wish they would do, and I would be shocked if it ever happens, because, well, the one thing I wish they would do is add profiles to at least iPads. I don't think it's ever going to happen because they want you to buy a device for every kid. Whereas
they want everyone to have their own iPad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like for me, I've got my 2 older kids have their own iPads, and I've got these controls set up. That's fine. My youngest shares with mom. So I can't set up parental controls on the device because if I or my wife goes to use it, we don't want those parental controls, obviously. Yep. But if my kid goes to use it, I don't want them to be, just going on everything we can go on. So it's like, having profiles would be great. But again, I would be shocked if it ever happens because they just want you to buy them their own device.
Yeah, I will say it's actually not enough to just set up profiles at a basic level, because they did do that on, they finally accepted that you weren't going to have 6 different Apple TVs in every room of the house for 6 different members of the family.
Right.
And they added profiles to the Apple TV a few years back. But the way that they did that, the profiles themselves they don't really do anything. All it does is sort of separate your Game Center accounts and your watch recommendations. But that's it. Like, you can still access all the same content. The Switch does that exact same thing, where like the profiles exist so that you can have your own personal save games. You can do your own streaming with your own friends. You can, stuff like that. Like, that's how the profiles exist. They don't actually let you set granular controls. Like, I have parental controls turned on our Switch, and it's the device as a whole. And if I want to get on there and play one of my games that is restricted by the parental controls, like Hades, for instance, my kids don't play Hades. I play Hades. But I need to disable the parental controls in order to play the games that I want to play. And, it'd be so much better if when you started the thing up, it was all like, hey, select your profile. And each profile had a pin controlled by the person who knew whose profile it was, so that if I wanted to play it, I just had to go to my profile, enter in my pin, and then I can do whatever I want. And then when I put the thing to sleep and my kids come up next to use it, then they aren't able to take advantage of the fact that I disabled parental controls for the entire day. Which is a thing that currently happens all the time. I'm getting distracted. Dang it.
Well, see, and this is where I think
you go, Wes. You knew it was going to happen.
I mean, it's my fault, and I'm going to continue it, because this is where I think, like, interestingly enough, companies like Amazon and Disney and even Netflix have got it right, where you can have profiles and you can set this profile to be a kid's profile, and it only shows certain content, and then you can set yours to be an adult profile, and it'll just show all of it. And even if it was just that would be great. But again, I don't think it's going to happen because they want you to buy their own device.
I would love for that to happen, but yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's why the Switch is the same way.
Yeah.
Nintendo
want you
just
to buy
wants
your
you to
own
buy
kid
a new
another
Switch
Switch.
for
Yeah.
every kid. That's what they want. And yeah, Apple, same thing. They want you to buy an iPad for every kid. So, oh well. Just don't let your kids use iPads, listener.
I mean, hardware companies are going to hardware. That's what it is.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. All right. So that's trust and safety. Honestly, I was super happy with that whole discussion. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to Apple Intelligence and Siri. I have the most words written down about this. But granted, a lot of those words are like editorialization that I wrote down because I wanted to read it rather than just go off the cuff. Because me going off the cuff is, well, we'll put it this way. To quote the great Mark Twain, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. I took the time to shorten everything down, listener, so I'm just going to read this crap. I've got a script. Okay. So first they talked about Apple Foundation models built with Google. Okay. We knew that this was coming. They'd partnered with Google. They were using Gemini. However, they were very specific later on in the week at WWDC. These are not actually Google's models. Okay. They are not using Gemini models. They're using the underlying Gemini training framework to train their own models. So they don't have to start from scratch. They got the basic data sets and the training algorithms from Google and used that to train their own foundational models to power all of their AI functionality and Siri and so forth.
So, okay.
So
before you go on, I heard a really good analogy on this one that I thought was really funny because people they don't want you to think that, oh, it's not Gemini, it's our thing. But the analogy I heard was like, okay, that's true. But if like you were to take a car dealership, you say you have a Honda dealership and they have a Honda repair center, but you want to train your Toyota people on how to repair cars, and you have the Honda people train them. They know how to repair Hondas all of a sudden, but they're working for Toyota. It's like, well, technically they're working on Toyotas, but they were trained by Honda. So it's like, well.
Well, and here's the thing. I think that is a pretty good analogy because that Toyota tech trained by Honda techs is going to be able to repair 99.9% of all things wrong with the Toyota.
Right.
Because they are cars that are they're
Yes.
similar to each other, right? There's a lot of things in common between the two. But there's going to be edge cases where it's all like, yeah, this dude is not a Toyota tech. He's a Honda tech.
Yeah.
He just works for a Toyota dealership, right? Like I think that's a pretty good analogy. So there's definitely going to be some things about Apple's foundational models that are going to be like, yeah, that's Gemini. It feels like it's Gemini coded, but they are technically new models that Apple has built off of Gemini's foundational training layer. So Apple's focus with these models was to optimize them for on-device as well as private cloud compute. Now, Apple made a whole big stink about this a couple of years ago when they first introduced it. Private cloud compute is basically their own it's actually a bunch of Mac studios in a data center.
Yeah.
From what I understand, running, cloud AI models. But because they're all controlled by Apple directly, they are able to more closely ensure that they are in fact private. That said, there is a special model. So they have multiple foundational models. I think they talked about like 5 of them, but one of them is a special model for high-end devices on device that will do a lot of the same things that you would have to do private cloud compute for on other devices. But some of their higher-end devices will give you stuff like better dictation, better understanding, better vocalization and stuff with an on-device model that is not available to other devices. So that's, some of the nuance, but generally speaking, you're going to have some lightweight models that work on device. That's going to be the stuff that's handling the dictation, that's handling the speaking, that is going to be doing basic tasks inside of the OS. And then you're going to have more complicated stuff, the generative AI that is running in the cloud. Most of that will be running in private cloud compute on actual hardware owned by Apple. They did say that some of it, namely Image Playground, the image generation stuff, they did work with Google and NVIDIA to run those models on NVIDIA hardware in Google data centers. Now, they were still very specific about making sure that they were able to leverage privacy the same way as private cloud compute for those instances, but let it be known that if you are doing image generation, that is not technically Apple's hardware. They don't technically have full control of that interaction. So just put that out there.
Yeah.
They've introduced something called the system orchestrator, which is designed to take these various models and make them work together, get them to talk together, which is a thing that I don't think Google even thought about. But, you know, as we talked about when we talked about I/O, I don't think anybody in Google talks to each other. So that's probably, they don't even have a company orchestrator. How could they get a system orchestrator?
Seriously.
Supposedly this thing is like using the models and in a way that like brings the system together, sort of how Spotlight kind of does. And there's been some concern about like, well, are they just going to get rid of Spotlight because we really like Spotlight? Apple specifically said that this is not replacing Spotlight. It's going to use Spotlight and the search index built by Spotlight to help bring pieces of the system together. And the APIs that apps use to plug into Spotlight to enable deep functional search and discoverability inside of apps, they're using those same APIs with the system orchestrator to help bring those things together. And because of that, they're going to be able to enable functionality of these models system-wide with a single update, rather than having to have individual apps specifically buy into it, which is nice. That's, again, a decision that is focused on the whole idea of, like, let's make the devices less, like, hard to use, like, less friction for users, which is what I wanted. They also specifically said that none of the data that none of your search queries, none of your requests, none of your instructions or anything like that goes to the cloud is going to be stored. None of that is stored on device for your on-device models either. It is used in the moment in RAM to execute the request and then destroyed, deleted. It's gone. They also specifically said that all of their off-site, the private cloud compute stuff and the infrastructure associated with that, as well as the on-device models, is all available for third-party audit. And please come and look at it.
Yeah.
Which is very refreshing. I would love for OpenAI to let the third-party audit their operations.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
That'd be great news, honestly, because we would learn a lot of horrible things about OpenAI, I suspect. So yeah, that's the foundational models built on from a basic training level on Google's technology, but technically still new stuff for Apple. Then they moved on to Siri, which they gave it a new name. Of course they gave it a new name. It's called Siri AI. Okay, sure, that's great. Now they have added a dedicated Siri app, which I think is kind of dumb. However, they specifically put it there so that you can refer back to interactions that you have with Siri. So that if you ask it to do something or something like that, and it does something, if you want to reference what it told you at some point or anything like that, you can just go into the app, go back and look at it without having to ask again. But really what this app is doing is, despite everything they said, it's storing your interactions with the system.
Yeah.
Now, this is on device storage, right? It's not cloud storage. And the reason it's doing this is for context. So that when Siri wants to So when you ask Siri something new, it can get the context of your entire conversation up to that point. So basically, this is how this works for all AI, listener, in case you were wondering. If you ask it something, it is going to go back and read your conversation history real quick before it answers, because it doesn't actually remember. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just going to go back, read everything, and then give you an answer that makes sense in that moment. And then it's going to immediately forget the whole thing. This is how AI works. It is, there's actually, I read a comic about it. A guy was talking about how it's like, hey, maybe AI is sentient, but it essentially commits suicide after every conversation or every interaction in a conversation. And then the next time you initiate the next sentence in the conversation, a brand new clone of it is birthed into existence, quickly reads the entire conversation, says the next most logical thing in line, and then dies again. And that's essentially how AI works.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's dystopian. But that's why this dedicated Siri app exists, is so that Siri can do that. And bonus, it gives you something to go back and reread if you want to reference some piece of information that it told you.
And I can vouch for that being a good thing, because like I've been using the Gemini app on my phone for a while. And there are times where I want to go back and be like, well, you know, I mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago how I used Gemini to create a workout plan for myself, and it worked it did exactly what I wanted to. And now, like, I want to go in there and be like, hey, add this type of workout or this type of workout and create a new plan based on this new thing. And it can do that because it's got all that stuff saved inside the app. And so I can go in and ask it to tweak different things to it or add things to it. And it can do that and give me a new, updated, not a completely new version, but just an updated, added on to version of that workout plan. And so having the ability to save these chats is a good thing in most cases. There's obviously going to be things be like, oh, I don't need to keep that. And you can delete it yourself. And then it's just gone forever, which is great. But also having the ability to reference back to things is also good in some contexts.
Yeah. Part of this new Siri is they're also giving you the ability to do some customization or more customization to the voice instead of just like picking one from a couple of different voices. I will say that part of the special fancy on-device model for higher end devices includes more customization of the voice. So some of the stuff that they were showing off if you see it in the keynote, some of that is restricted only to higher end newer Apple devices, just so you know.
And by that, it's only the 17 Pro phones, from what I understand.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's true. I don't think they've put that even on any of the Macs, which is kind of funny because, like, I'm sure the M5 Max can do it, but it does require at least 12 gigs of RAM, which is why the newer, the 17s get it, but not the 17E.
Yeah.
So anyways. So yes, then they proceeded to show a whole bunch of demos of kind of the new general functionality of Siri AI. I think that the demos did a pretty good job of showing stuff that people would actually do, which is nice. It is refreshing, you know?
Yeah. Well, the great thing I loved about these demos they gave us is they were, I mean, obviously this is a pre-recorded thing, but they were as much as they could be live demos. Whereas 2 years ago, they just showed a picture of a phone on this thing. And then, whereas this one's like, you could tell, like, the person was holding the phone. There was a camera over his shoulder looking at it. And you can see as he was doing it. And they were definitely live demos.
And they were leaving in the pauses, right?
Which was also great.
They would query, they would make a request, and then you'd sit there and watch Siri spin for a minute while it did it.
Yep.
It's like, okay, yeah, like that's realistic. I have a write-up.
Sorry.
The demos showing conversational searching and visual intelligence were impressive. Finding info on your devices and in your conversations and pulling it all into one place is very consumer oriented. This is again the reducing friction with your device, right? Being able to easily just pull everything into a single interface. So nice. I love that. Functionality like this pulls from your data that you own and you produce, and doesn't really rely on accuracy from any other source, which is an ideal application for these AI algorithms that they're so much more advanced than what was powering these assistants just a few years ago. And when they are pulling from a single data source, being me, my stuff, the stuff I produce, accuracy doesn't matter, right? Like I don't need to worry about the data being corrupted by idiots on Reddit or something like that because it doesn't care. Reddit isn't here. I did not produce Reddit, right? Like it's pulling from my conversations, my emails, my interactions, my data. And that's like the ideal use case for these things. They also showed off a bunch of features that pulled information from the web in a more traditional LLM chat GPT style. Those features do concern me a little bit. Conversational search is easier for users. Yes, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. My main question and concern continues to be that I haven't seen any sort of indication that consideration was given to ensuring the accuracy and longevity of where this information comes from. Right? Like this isn't a unique thing to Apple. This is a concern I have every time somebody says, yeah, you could just use this to search the internet and you'll never have to visit another website again. Again, I don't want this to replace my websites. I don't want this to replace the internet.
Yeah.
I just want this to simplify getting to the things I need on the internet, right? Reduce the friction. If Google wants to use this to make so that you can do a conversational search and it will give you an even better list of top results to visit, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. I want a conversational search because that is objectively easier for the majority of consumers. It just is. You don't have to learn keywords. You don't have to learn anything about SEO. You just type in a search and the LLM goes, yes, I understand what you're asking for. I will do the keywords. I will do the SEO crap and give you a really nice list of things. And that's perfect. That's ideal. But then make me click on them. Okay. Yeah. Make me click on them and go to the website so that the person who wrote this good information gets paid.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how the internet continues to survive after this. Apple is not doing that. Google is not doing that. This is a problem.
Yeah.
I don't, that continues to be my main concern with what Apple was showing off here. They were showing off a lot of very consumer oriented interfaces, which is great. I just want somebody to acknowledge that we need to do the web searching bit a little bit differently so that the web continues to be functional
and useful
in the future. Yeah. Yes. So that's my only thing with that. But what the demos they were showing off for Siri AI honestly looked user focused and functional as heck. And if that's the Siri they actually deliver in September, I'm going to be absolutely blown away. Will it be essentially the same as the assistant that Google delivered about 4 years ago? Yes, but that's okay.
Yeah, everybody loved that assistant. It was great.
Exactly. So they had a bunch of other AI tools. I'm just going to run through them quickly, but I will say you may hear some of these, listener, and be like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted from whatever. And that's awesome. I'm happy you're getting that. So first of all, topic tab groups for you 100 tab heathens. If you have many, yes, Landon's raising his hand. If you have many tabs open, it's going to automatically group them into topic groups, which is awesome. You want to know how many tabs I have across all of my devices? Literally all of my devices connected to the internet? About 10. So not for me, but that is okay. AI extension generator for Safari that they are calling Describe an Extension, kind of like what, we talked about in Shortcuts a few weeks ago, but for extensions in Safari.
Love this.
Nothing personal against the people who develop extensions, but the simple fact of the matter is the vast majority of extensions, that was open source, like, homebrew projects. Anyways, nobody was paying for extensions in Safari, right? No. So I don't feel too bad about this. But basically, yeah, you just plain text to describe what you would like an extension to do in Safari, and it will generate an extension for you, install it, you can use it. If you want an extension that parses through all the text on a web page and replaces all of the word 14 every time it sees it, it replaces it with like a smiley face emoji or something like that, you can do that. Would that be stupid? Yes, but you could. So,
well, the other thing I like about this is like if you describe an extension and there's already one available, it'll just show you that one.
yes,
Like, do you happen to want this? And if it works the way you want it to, you can install it. Great. I love that. And if it isn't quite exactly what you want, then make your own. Great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep. They also added, so this is my favorite piece of agentic AI I have ever seen, is the password update agent. This is actually genius. So this is essentially, right, the password manager, the passwords app, I guess, in iOS, iPadOS, macOS, whatever, tracks all of your iPads, searches against databases of leaked passwords, and will tell you if your passwords are, associated with your accounts are showing up in any of those leaks. And then it'll tell you, hey, this has appeared as part of a leak. You should go change it. And it'll give you a button. You can click on the button and it will take you to that website and just dump you out there and be like, okay, change your password. It's really manual process and it kind of sucks. And because of that, I have not used it to change virtually any of my passwords.
Yeah.
It's a great thing in concept, but basically all it does is tell me, hey, about half of your passwords have been compromised at some point. Okay, thanks. Appreciate the information. This is an agentic AI that will go to the website and change the password for you.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't let you choose the password. It's just going to go in and replace it with an auto-generated super secure password of gibberish, which, okay, because it's then going to log that new password and store it in your password manager. So maybe that's fine. So, it's not necessarily a perfect solution, but if it actually works, you can just click a button and the AI will go and change your password for you and you don't have to do anything. Sick. That's amazing.
I mean, I don't, well, okay. I use 3 different password managers more or less because I do use Apple's password manager because it's built into my phone. It works fine. I also use Google because I was on Android for a long time. So they're just built into Chrome. And as my main one, I use Bitwarden, and like all 3 kind of work together. But like I already have those, or usually Bitwarden, generate a password for me anyways. So like I don't know what my passwords are for most of my apps because it just generates a gibberish password for me, and then I just know my Bitwarden password or things like that. So like to me, this not knowing what the password is, I'm already there. So I actually really like this, and I wouldn't hate to see it come to more password apps out there. And it might, now that Apple's doing it, I could see Google adding it, Bitwarden adding it, like all these different apps doing that. And it would be fantastic because I'm the same way. Like I get the notifications that, oh yeah, this password is part of a breach or something like that. I'm like, okay, I haven't gone to that website in 5 years. I don't care. Or,
exactly. It's like, that's nice. I'm never going to change this because it's too much work. It's too much friction.
It really
is.
Whereas,
everyone who's talking about agentic AI is all like, hey, you can get this AI to order you an Uber. I'm like, have you seen the Uber app? It's a piece of cake to order an Uber.
Yeah.
That is like 2 clicks. Like, that's so simple. I don't need a freaking AI agent to go do that for me. You know what I need an AI agent to do? Go change my step piece of crap password on this website that I barely care about. That is such a better application of this technology. I've never seen it anywhere else before. So yeah, just fantastic. Again, another instance of Apple going, how can we use AI to reduce friction for our users? As opposed to, how can we use AI to get headlines or whatever? Anyways. They've also added one-tap suggestions in messages. So essentially, you've seen this. If you have Gmail, you've seen this for years. This has been a thing where, you get an email. If there is if the AI thinks, if the system thinks that you could respond to this email with a very short, quick, whatever, because it doesn't actually matter, then it just offers you that up and you can just click on it and send it, away it goes. It's basically that in messages. And I think that this is like the perfect application for quote unquote generative AI. It's essentially just autocorrect predictions where, you know, the thing you used to do where you just go to a blank text field and then just tap the center autocorrect prediction like 5 times. And that was the message you sent. Always good fun. Never resulted in anything actually coherent, but it was funny. But this is that except coherent, right? Where it's just going to pop up like, hey, somebody sent you a message like, okay, sounds good. I'll see you tomorrow at whatever. And the response to that is, okay, or sounds good, or see you then, whatever. Like we don't need to type that out. It's just going to populate, give you a few options. You can just tap on one and it'll send it and you're done with that interaction. This is the perfect application for written generative AI.
Yeah.
This and nothing else, like no more than that, right? Just these quick blasts of like, I don't actually need to sit here and type. Just let me vomit this into the universe and be on my way. So I like that. The Home app is now going to be able to turn accessory notifications into an auto updating live notification. So they were kind of talking about how like some of the more basic home, like smart home functionality is, your doorbell camera will just send you a notification every time it detects movement. And occasionally that's just like a cat that likes your porch or something like that. So you get all of these notifications over and over again. You get a huge stack in your notification center. So basically the AI, instead of just letting these notifications pile up, is going to just take the notifications and just turn them into a single notification that will just update as new stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Nice. Simple. Reduces friction. Love it. Then the AI shortcut generator, also called Describe a Shortcut, which we actually talked about a couple of weeks ago. I guess this wasn't actually announced yet when we were talking about it. Somebody just discovered it in the code. I didn't realize that. I thought that Apple had announced it. But no, they announced it at WWDC after the Describe an Extension, which I described as kind of like in Shortcuts. Then they talked about it in Shortcuts because they had... Anyways, yeah, we talked about this already. It's the plain text prompt. It'll give you a shortcut and that'll do what you want. You can use that to put widgets on your home screen. You can use that to do automations in your daily life. The stuff that the Shortcuts app could already do, which is a thing that exists to reduce the friction with your smart device. And this is just reducing the friction of reducing the friction. Super, super consumer friendly.
Yeah.
I love it. So those are just some of the generic AI sprinkles that have been kind of dropped into the OS that I think are, like I said, make me sound like an Apple shill. It's just a really nice, like, consumer focused, here's how we introduce AI to the masses. And I think they're doing this better than anybody else right now. Is the AI itself more capable than anything else right now? Probably not. But does it need to be? No, please stop. I don't want the capabilities that those other people are touting. I want basic capabilities that make my life easier. This is that. So good. Now, I have some final thoughts about the event as a whole, written in a series of summaries because, just I could keep going. They talked about some image tools and writing tools that, they have added into the OSs. So this is my editorialization moment, listener. So just bear that in mind. Writing tools, like they discussed for like generating emails and that kind of thing, will over time of extensive use, remove your unique voice from your writing and make it harder for you to organize your thoughts yourself. Now, I'm speaking from experience on this, listener, because this is a thing that I struggle with a lot. I am a writer professionally, right? And anything I don't know. This is just a thing that naturally occurs when you are not writing. Is you lose your voice, is you lose that unique organization and structure to your thoughts. And if you go long enough without using it, it does genuinely get harder to structure things in your own head, right? So using the writing tools the way that Apple was showing them, which honestly Apple was showing it a heck of a lot less intrusively than like OpenAI does. But even still, even at that level, if you do that enough, if you do that for more than just like auto-generating a throwaway email to somebody you don't care about, if you do any more than that, it's going to have a detrimental effect on you in the long term.
Yeah.
Just say that. Image Playground. They talked about that. AI generation of images, music, and prose, like for entertainment. Apple's version, which is Gemini underneath, or frankly anyone else's version of this, is just fully a cancer that will straight up murder your creativity. Okay? It'll kill it dead. Perhaps this isn't the time for that level of editorialization. I'll make a YouTube video about it. There, I'm committing. Calling All Platforms Tech is going to get a YouTube video of me ranting about AI generation of images, music, and prose. That's going to happen at some point. Not in the next 2 weeks. I'm going on a road trip. Okay.
It might happen in 2027, you know.
Yeah, we'll see. By then it might be too late. So I will, as a caveat to that, machine learning based tools for editing images, editing stuff, can be creatively liberating, because that is could potentially exist to reduce the friction of the tool that you're using, right? Because if you're using software in any of these creative purposes, there is going to be some level of friction associated with just using the software. Machine learning based tools have for years been successful at smoothing out that friction and allowing people to be more creative without getting hung up, getting bogged down in the tools that they're using. So that can be really good. Some of these tools being simplified with advanced AI, which is advanced machine learning, for general users to use in tweaking subject positioning in their photos and stuff like that, like Apple showed in some of their demos, that can be kind of cool, right? I already talked about that. But in general, most consumers will use the photo tools for removing stuff in the background of vacation photos, for instance, which then raises the question of whether the photos are actually helping you capture the moment if they don't actually reflect what was happening in the moment anymore. This is photo editing for the social media generation, where what is posted isn't actually reflective of reality, which is a phenomenon that itself can be at the heart of a whole lot of widespread harm caused by the internet. This is not Apple's fault.
Yeah.
Right? They're giving you tools that could be used for like, oh shoot, I was taking this picture and there's like a weird little lump in this moment here because I snapped it at the moment that a chipmunk dive bombed behind this person's head and you can see the tip of its tail. And it looks weird. I want to clip out that bit, but I would still make the argument that you lose the novel nature of that chipmunk dive bombing in that moment, right? It no longer functions as a record of that moment. But if that wasn't the point of the photo, if the point of the photo was, I want this to be a graduation photo that I'm going to mail out or something like that, then sure, having a tool that allows you to crop that out of there is fine. And, you know, you've been able to do that in Photoshop for actual pants decades.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that these tools are just inherently bad. I'm just saying that, like, using these tools in the way that Apple showed is probably fine, but that's not how most people are going to use them. Most people are going to use them because it's all like, oh, I want to crop out that ugly person that was standing behind me at the beach from my vacation photos. And if you do that, then you're losing the fact that you went to a beach full of homeless people from your memory of the event, right? So, like, it's no longer a record of the event, and you're going to post it on Instagram and try and make it look perfect. And so it's, you know, it's been an issue with social media ever since the beginning of social media, that the people only post what they want the world to see, which means that everybody's comparing themselves to this idealized perfect version of their friends, which isn't real. But then that makes them depressed. and all of their friends are depressed because they're also seeing only the idealized perfect version of everybody else. And so everybody just gets more and more depressed. This is not going to help with that. So again, not Apple's fault, potentially just a huge problem with the internet and social media in general.
See, listener, this is why I don't follow Caleb on social media, because he only posts the best pic. No, just kidding.
Man, if you catch me posting anything on social media, you take note of that day, because
Yep,
that
seriously.
is a special occasion.
Or
No,
his account
so-
was hacked.
Yeah, probably. So this is like just large scale concerns with social media and the state of the internet and everybody's mental health in society as a whole, not necessarily tied to Apple's WWDC, but you're going to see some of these features rolling out on your iPhone in the near term, listener, and I just want you to think before you use them. You want this to be a moment in time for this particular vacation or something like that. Don't tweak it. Don't edit it. Just let the moment exist in all of its stupid problems, and that's fine. If you're trying to take a graduation photo and something weird happened in the background in the moment, all right, go ahead and tweak it. If you want to reframe the subject, or, you're taking a picture of your kids at the end of their their rec league soccer season or something like that, and there's a dozen parents all standing there taking pictures at the same time, and every kid is looking at a different camera, and you want to use an AI tool to just tweak the positioning of their eyes so that they're all facing forward, fine, do that, right? Like, go ahead. That's fine. I'm not saying the tools are inherently bad. I'm just saying that be conscientious about how you use them.
Yeah.
And that was WWDC. I honestly, overall, super impressed. I felt like the majority of everything they were doing was very user-focused, consumer-focused, which is first time in a long time I felt that way. Not just about Apple, but about technology as a whole, which is great. Obviously, I still have thoughts. I still have some problems with AI in general, especially generative AI. But most of those are not issues that I have with Apple's implementation here.
Yeah.
And that is so refreshing. I came out of it feeling better about the future of at least Apple's ecosystem than I have felt in quite some time. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'm going to take a drink. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, seriously. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about a little bit left over from video games last week. We're going to talk about the Nintendo Direct.
Yeah. I can keep going. That's fine. Acting like I can't talk for hours on end, listener. We all know that's false.
Yep.
Nintendo Direct, right? We talked about State of Play. We talked about the Xbox Game Showcase. We talked about Summer Game Fest, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
then on Monday or something like that, Nintendo Direct happened. We should talk about that. There was a bunch of stuff that was Nintendo-y and I don't necessarily care about, but few high-profile things that I think are going to appeal to a broad range of Nintendo people. First of all, new Fire Emblem game. If you play Fire Emblem and you like Fire Emblem, they announced Fortune's Weave, which is the next Fire Emblem. So happy for you. More for me, actually, Switch Sports Resort. I kid you not. I was actually thinking about getting Wii Sports Resort just like a couple of weeks ago. Because we have Wii Sports, which is great, but there's a lot more games in Wii Sports Resort. And I'm all like, ooh, maybe I should get that. Add that onto the list. Switch Sports Resort. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. Like that. Love that. This one, similarly to Fire Emblem, for those of you that are fans of this series, more power to you. I don't understand how your brain works in any way, but Kingdom Hearts 4, it's coming.
It's coming. That's a big one. That is a big one. Yes.
Enjoy. I don't get it, but enjoy.
That's
And
true.
then-
That is a big one.
The one that I think is kind of the moment for most of our generation, Ocarina of Time is getting a remake.
Mm-hmm.
remake. Did they call it a remake or a remaster? I think a remake.
They said remake
Like,
for Switch 2 exclusive.
Yeah. So yes. So for the Switch 2, Ocarina of Time is getting a remake. This is widely regarded as, well, I don't know if this is still the case. Was up until Breath of the Wild pretty much everybody's favorite Zelda game, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is peak Zelda. Breath of the Wild may give it a run for the money. I think that Breath of the Wild, generally people like that more than Tears of the Kingdom. So it's kind of like, those are the two that are in the discussion of what is the best Zelda game, is Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. With a remade, like upscaled, fancy pants, modern sensibilities designed remake of Ocarina of Time might, I feel like, just be the best Zelda game ever made, possibly. So worth keeping an eye on that. Obviously, Kingdom Hearts 4 and Ocarina of Time, these were announcements, not like, hey, we have a release date for these. It's all like, hey,
Right.
this game exists. It's in development. We're going to release it sometime in the next few years. And, you know, they did that with Metroid Prime 4 like 7 years before they finally released it or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that gap was, but it was big. So don't necessarily get your hopes up super high, listener, but just so you know, these games are coming. So, yeah. And that's kind of the highlight from Nintendo Direct, at least as far as I am concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in that same boat. I will just mention also they did say that Minecraft is getting a dedicated Switch 2 version for those of you that play Minecraft on there. So,
well, of course you would bring that up because you're the Xbox guy. That's
I would. I figured I would. You know,
yeah. No,
I don't have a Switch 2, but I know,
you've been able to play on the Switch 2, but you were just playing the Switch 1 version of the
Correct.
game. So
Correct.
Now there's going to be a dedicated Switch 2 version that'll have better draw distances, probably,
That's
or something like that. I don't know.
visuals. Or
It's
something.
Minecraft. It'll be
Yeah.
Minecraft.
Cool. Well, that's really it for the Nintendo Direct, listener. There was a lot more games. If you want to go take a look at those games. We're going to go ahead and move on to, since we're in the gaming, we're going to talk a little bit about this rumor. Listener, you probably have seen this, whether you're a gamer or not, that all of a sudden people are saying Microsoft is selling Xbox. That is just a rumor, listener.
Yes.
We talked about this at the beginning of the show because I was like, this is a rumor that came from Asha Sharma, the leadership of Xbox, sent out a memo to everyone, but they also put it out on Xbox Wire, knowing full well it would be a leak. So
Yes.
they pretty much had said,
Which was smart of them, honestly.
yeah. So what it came down to it is Xbox didn't make as much money as they wanted to, and they need to make changes. So they threw out a couple things that they said that they're going to look at. So they're going to look at the games. They're going to look at, okay, did this studio make money? Does this make money for us? How can we make Xbox a better money maker for Microsoft? And so lots of things came out from that. And one of the things that they said is they would, I believe, it's how they said they would look at, it's possible for a restructure of what Xbox is in Microsoft, is what they said. And a lot of people took that and said, oh, they're going to spin it off and sell it. And
Yeah,
listener,
it's the takeaway from this is that, like, over the course of, I guess, the last console generation or something like that, Microsoft has spent like $40 billion or something like that they had no prayer of making back. Anyways, the money situation is just not good. They're not doing well. We've kind of known this for a long time. We've kind of known Xbox has been in trouble for a long time. And this memo was basically them saying, hey, Xbox is in trouble. We need to make changes to stay afloat. And we're all like, yes, we kind of knew that. We could tell. You spent $70 billion on Activision Blizzard. That's not the kind of thing that somebody who is not desperate does. Just it's go to Papa Sadella and be like, hey, please give us $70 billion to buy Activision Blizzard because Call of Duty is going to make us so much money. Turns out it's not quite how that works. So yeah, like we've known. the things that they were saying is just kind of generic, like, we're going to make some drastic changes. It could be closing studios. It could be canceling games. It could be restructuring the company. It could be selling assets. It could whatever.
Mhm.
That was essentially all it was. And listen, behind closed doors, have some of these executives said, what if we sell Xbox at the Microsoft level? Somebody has said that, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Is that what's happening? No. Like, we don't know. We don't know anything. So we'll report back when we know.
Yeah.
Listener.
Pretty much we wanted to bring it up just to be like, everything's a rumor right now. So
Yeah. We wanted to bring it up so that we know, and now we know, we know. We will get back to you once we know.
I think the idea though is she sent this out before isn't their entire year done on the 30th of this month, so they're going to have a whole new fiscal year. I think their fourth quarter is done by the end of this month. So I'm sure she's getting ahead of this to send that out.
Yes.
So it's for us to expect this. So
Yeah,
whatever they're going to do,
are going to be in, and
yeah. So whatever they're going to do, they're going to do quick and get it done, and just when this new quarter happens. So I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. We'll report on it. So that's probably what's happening. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to move on to the last part of our podcast, our newest section, the bright side of life.
Welcome to the bright side of life. Hey! Hey! Jump in!
All right, listener. Appreciate you listening all the way to the bright side of life. Want to try and end our podcast with, something good, something pleasant. So we made this section of our podcast just for that, in case, because talking about tech sometimes is not fun. It can be depressing. So, so here we go. Bright side of life. The first one that's going to start is going to be me. Actually, is up today. I decided to put family gathering. So, listener, this weekend went to a wedding for a family member and just had a really good time. Our family, listener, we get along, we enjoy. We're really a rowdy bunch, very rowdy. So we just dancing, laughing, food, all sorts of stuff. And so it was just really fun. And I hadn't been to something like that in a while. Something I needed just to remind myself, oh yeah, I love my family. So that was my bright side of life. I know, sure you guys can relate to something like that, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, that wedding. So that's what happened this week for me. So, all right, Landon, you're up.
All right, listener. Now, this may come as no surprise to you if you've been listening for any time this year, really.
Yeah.
Mine is sports related once again, because sports makes me happy most of the time. Not always, most of the time. But this week, the World Cup started. If you weren't aware of that, that's surprising, because even if you're not a fan of soccer, that's still surprising because it's everywhere.
It's kind of everywhere.
It's the biggest event in the world ever. Like, it's more watched
every 4
than,
years.
Yeah, every 4 years. It's more watched than the Olympics. Like, as big as the Olympics are, yes, it's a worldwide event. The World Cup is still bigger than the Olympics, because soccer is by far the biggest sport in the world outside of the U.S. especially. But it started this week. I love it. I love soccer. I love the World Cup. It's so much fun. And as of recording, the U.S. has already played their first group stage game, and they played great. It was fantastic. Loved it. They won 4-1. Best game they've ever had in a World Cup. Best game the U.S. has had in a long time, which is making me really happy. Now, do I think they're going to go really far into the tournament because of that? No, I don't. But it still made me happy that they played well in that game, and it's giving me a little extra hope that they might go a little farther than I thought they would. Really great. But overall, I love watching the World Cup. I like watching any of the games. If it's on, I'm going to watch it. I love it. So that's my bright side of life this week is the World Cup. And it's going to be for about a month and a half because it goes for a little while. And I'm so excited about it.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. And Caleb, to wrap this up.
Road trips. That's my bright side. I have to tell myself that because preparing for road trips is not the bright side of life. But actually going on I love a good road trip. I enjoy driving personally. I know that kind of makes me weird, but give me a big soda, give me some music that I like and somebody to talk to that I don't hate, and I will drive forever. So yeah, I like road trips. It's a great opportunity to spend time with family and, make memories, see sights.
Yeah.
We're going to be going up to the Oregon coast, spending a couple of days up there, seeing lighthouses and eating seafood, eating so much seafood.
Yeah.
Oh man, listener,
Yep,
we're in a double landlocked state. And my gosh, I am so excited to go up there and have some sushi and some fish and chips and just eat some seafood. Man, I'm so stoked. Calamari, man, I haven't had fried calamari in years. Anyways, looking forward to that. And then, we're going to move a little bit further inland, go see a couple of national parks that we haven't seen before, go to some national monuments and spend some time in a nice Airbnb next to a lake, just
Cool.
I don't know, playing games or whatever, right? So it's a road trip. We're road tripping. We're going to be moving around, seeing some stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that after I finish packing. So, yep.
Awesome. Well, listener, thanks for listening to the end of the episode. We're going to let you go unless, Landon, you got one more thing for us?
No, I don't.
That was pretty good. All right. Listener, again, appreciate you listening to the end of the episode. If you want to get a hold of us, want us to talk about anything, want us to make fun of Caleb for whatever, you can let us know. We'll do it. Let us know on our social media platforms as well as callingallplatforms.com. Take a look over at that YouTube channel. Go ahead, subscribe, do all that. When that new YouTube videos that's going to come up about ranting about AI.
Yep.
That'll come up soon. All right, listener.
After the road trip.
Yeah, after 2 weeks at least. All right, listener. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Calling All Platforms is a production of Supporter Sound Studios. To learn more about how you can support the podcast, go to www.patreon.com/callingallplatforms.